Have you ever had a horrible boss, Rohit?
Have I had a horrible boss? Yes, and it lasted 3 months.
You were quick to leave.
Yeah. Rolling stone gathers no boss.
Rolling Stone gathers no more. You're full of quotable quotes today, I have to say. What made them horrible? And we're back. This is Habits Matter. I'm your host, Shreyasi Singh, founder and CEO of Harappa Education, where our mission is to power your world of work with good habits. You're tuning in to a second episode, Horrible Bosses, featuring guests who share horrifying experiences from work. How did they cope with bad bosses? What did they say? Why did they stay? Advisory warning. Some answers will make you cry. Others will make you cry with laughter. Keep listening.
Oh God, horrible bosses. I think the worst bosses, to be honest, are those which erode your confidence. Because every time you meet them, they say something that's humiliating or something that makes you feel small. So you go back, and particularly when it's early in your career, you haven't experienced enough of your own professional side to know whether it is, are they accurate in their assessment that you're useless? Or is it that they are being, extremely unfair? It takes many years to be able to block out feeling belittled very regularly. So I think the worst bosses of all are those who actually eat away at your self-belief.
I hate my boss, man.
If you're listening to this episode, I'm assuming that you've had a horrible boss at some point. And if you haven't, lucky you. Let's pray you continue to escape. Horrible bosses come in all shapes and sizes. We went out and spoke to professionals who've been on the battlefield. Now they're telling us exactly how to spot a horrible boss, hopefully from a safe distance.
Hi, I'm Shalini Lal. I'm an organizational consultant, writer, and hopefully thinker. I wrote the book Secret Life of Organizations because I was an idiot when I started my career and knew nothing. And I wanted others not to make the same mistakes. There's so many types of bad bosses, actually. Of course, there's the big, the quintessential horrible boss who is extremely authoritarian and, doesn't give you much room to speak about. But bad bosses could be of many other kinds as well. Like there could be a boss who really has no power and is weak.
A big talent myth out there is that the best bosses love to hire people smarter than them. They love to be questioned and pushed. This sounds great in people handbooks, but reality check? Truth is, bosses and CEOs have insecurities too. They love being the center of the universe and can struggle if someone else steals the spotlight. The insecure boss can leave you puzzled. They have all the power and none of the grace. I've had a boss like that, and it isn't fun to constantly watch yourself around them. And then there's the other kind of boss. This one's signature style is
Micromanagement, right? Which is fundamentally coming from a belief that I know better than you how to do things, and you have nothing to offer. The other thing is, I'm not a big fan of dressing down people in large groups, right? If I have to have a tough conversation, I'll have it one-on-one in a room with dignity. Tough conversations happen, but not in front of 20 people. Third is just people who don't walk the talk. Lack of authenticity. Saying diversity is very important, doing nothing about it. Saying family life balance is very important, but taking absolutely no step to make it happen. So those are three things: micromanagement, how people behave in large public group settings, groups, and third is lack of authenticity. Are a decent amount of recipe for a disastrous boss.
ouch, reflection time for me. That was my friend Rohit Kapoor. He's the CEO of Oyo Rooms for India and South Asia and certainly one of India's most watched CEOs. Rohit talks about micromanagement. If micromanagement is a sin, I might have to pay the price someday as well. I'm pretty sure my team thinks my obsession with crossing the T's and dotting the I's is annoying as hell. Now, before we talk about how you can deal with bad bosses on your own, here's something to think about. Horrible bosses are not necessarily horrible people. They're sometimes only dancing to the tune of organizational structure. According to T.N. Hari, who is the head of HR at Big Basket and one of India's best-known talent managers, the size and structure of a company can influence how people behave. Startups can be really aggressive when it comes to setting goals. High pressure comes with crazy deadlines and tough competition. Naturally, in situations like these, emotions can run wild and spiral out of control. The point is, if startups don't inculcate the right kind of culture from the very beginning, they can easily become aggressive and toxic, a breeding ground for horrible bosses. On the other hand, Hari says, good organizations weed out horrible bosses before it's too late. But what happens if the toxic boss is a top performer? Let's listen to Hari. He joins us on a call from the headquarters of Big Basket.
So there are nasty managers, some of them deliver results. So how should organizations deal with them? I think this is a very age-old problem. Organizations have found ways of dealing with them, good organizations. For example, Jack Welch, the legendary CEO, used to call such people a horse's ass, which is that they're brilliant people, but otherwise very nasty. They can be mean, they can be cheap, and they can be jerks. He said that there is no place for these kind of people in organizations. So, for example, you have a policy, for example, of, let's say, prevention of harassment. And if there is a complaint against your best performing sales guy, this is a sales guy who's bringing you 50% of your revenue. What do? Do you soft pedal on this complaint and don't take action because you are going to lose this, terrific sales guy? Or do you take action because if you don't take action, then you communicate the message that, ethics don't matter, behaviors don't matter. So in my opinion, smart organizations figure out that the intangible damage of not taking action against these nasty bosses is far more than some of the tangible results they bring in.
You know how that saying goes. One bad apple spoils the whole lot. That's so true for work cultures. The presence of a toxic boss can destroy trust, goodwill, and even force top talent out. The stats tell the same story. People quit their bosses, not their jobs. Nearly 60% of employees left a job because of a bad manager. Now, in a perfect world, organizations would choose calm moderation and kind people over momentum and growth. But it doesn't always work this way. That's why we find ourselves stuck with horrible bosses. So what can you do about it? Some people, like Rohit Kapoor, leave as soon as they can.
Have I had a horrible boss? Yes, and it lasted 3 months.
You were quick to leave.
Yeah, Rolling Stone gathers no boss.
Monika Halan has another approach. She tells us as she joins us on Skype, all the way from the rocky beaches of Pondicherry.
Hi, I'm Monika Halan. I'm the author of the best-selling book, Let's Talk Money. So it helps to have a little distance about what's happening right now to you and what is going to happen in the future. So it's sounding a bit philosophical and maybe it's not that easy to do, but it's always a good time to start. To see the situation and see the boss for what he's doing and not take it personally. It's not easy at all not to take things personally, but to try and see what it's doing to you and what can you take out of it. So in a way, you're very selfish. You're trying to constantly glean learnings from a situation. And if it comes to a point that you cannot take it anymore, then you have the option to move. But rather than resenting the situation and not wanting to go in, you see what there is to learn from that and then move on.
Moving on. Is there a difference between tough bosses and horrible bosses? Shalini explains.
Why are tough taskmasters perceived to be bad bosses? Now, see, the answer really lies with there are two things. Whether someone demands a lot of us and whether we feel nurtured in that relationship. Now, interestingly, the more you do of one, the more you can do of the other. If you feel they believe in you, fundamentally, they can push you a lot. And you will do so, by the way, without really resenting it. In fact, you may be quite delighted because you may discover so many things you didn't yourself know that you could do. But if you only have one axis, that you demand a lot, but you don't nurture, then for the most part, people don't enjoy that. People will take a lot of pushing if they feel you have their back and you believe in them.
In the 1960s, psychologists Robert Rosenthal and Leonard Jacobson studied the role of others' expectations on individual behavior. They called their findings the Pygmalion Effect, which says positive expectations from others brings out the best in us, and negative expectations do the opposite. So if your boss believes you're smart, capable, and talented, you're likely to rise up to this image. But if they believe you're useless, you may actually end up internalizing this belief.
The Pygmalion effect is basically, what I don't know if it can be applied universally, but it certainly is applicable in many situations, which is that if you let a person know that she is very smart, over a period of time, that person will behave in a smart way. If over a period of time, you let a person know that she is trustworthy, she will live up to the trust. So that's the way it works. If you make a person feel she's a fool, she will live up to that and be a fool. So the Pygmalion effect is really about how you make the other person feel, and over a period of time, that person begins to be the person you made that person feel. I learned this very early in life, which is that if you make a person feel good, that person behaves in a way that lives up to your belief. So, and I've seen that it largely works. However, I think there are some exceptions, obviously, which is that some people, it doesn't work with some people. Some people need close supervision. Some people need to be told on a regular basis that they're not doing some things right.
Quick recap. There are all kinds of bad bosses. Environments shape managerial styles. Organizations must put in place systems to weed out horrible bosses, and managers should be careful in how they convey their expectations to teams. If anything at all goes wrong, blame the boss, right? Hold on. Most relationships are two-way streets, so sometimes it can help to look inward. Are your expectations unrealistic? Do you expect no less than perfection from your boss? There's this quote by Naval Ravikant I really like. There are no adults. Everyone is making it up as they go along. This is true for everyone, and of course, your bosses. They're just people too.
The entire coaching industry and the social media has created this image of this mythical creature who's that perfect person, who's the great family person, the great boss, who runs the marathon, who climbs the mountain, who spends 14 hours at work, who also sleeps 8 hours, who eats green veggies, who never drinks alcohol. I can go on and on. So these mythical creatures have been created out of nowhere. I don't know any of them, right? We have set very unreal expectations of what do we expect from leaders as well.
That's true. It's almost like romance literature has told you that this is perfect partner.
This is a Mills and Boon equivalent of
absolutely. So ditch the Mills and Boon equivalent of an inspiring boss, right? It's not going to happen. It'll happen once in even if you actually have one amazing boss like that out of your 5%, you're lucky.
Yeah. Cherish it.
And if your boss is truly that horrible, well, don't lose hope yet.
On the positive side, some really, really good leaders become good leaders because they have had some experiences with horrible bosses who have taught them what never to do. And because they have emerged out of that process with, in their own way by, still managing to do great work. I think it's a sort of growth experience, even though one doesn't want such growth experiences. But it sort of does work.
That's me. A bad working relationship with the boss has so scarred me that I don't think I could have built a fun workplace like Harappa if I wasn't determined to avoid what poor leadership can do to a team. To anyone with a horrible boss right now, know that word travels. It's rare that a horrible boss will go unnoticed. Most clouds indeed have a silver lining. But just in case you've tried everything and there's still no lining, it's time to tell your horrible boss this.
Don't be one, get better. It's always possible.
Don't forget to send this episode to all the horrible bosses you know. The show is produced by Nitin Shamsuddin, scripted by Soumya Bahuguna, managed by Nishant Singh, under the editorial direction of Seema Chaudhary. Shout out to our bright audio engineer Madhavan Bhattacharjee, our design team Archit Thapar, Suman Kaur and Neha Nagar, and our product team Neeraj Sharma and Akash Trivedi. You can subscribe to Habits Matter on all your favorite podcast platforms. Please also follow Harappa Education. We are on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and everywhere else.
You ain't seen nothing yet.